Wells only and his guests are not responsible for any losses you may accrue for having weak hands. Where the haters at? Y'all bitches still ain't showed up. And now, right, we got Hex. Flawless uptime. People thought this was a joke. Now they're mad at the chart.
This is Wales only. Glad you guys can make it out. I'm making some claims that are pretty outlandish, but I can back them up. Boom. End of story. There is no other crypto out there, so don't get it twisted. If you don't understand where you're parking your money, you're gonna pay the consequences for that, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. Boom. We're obliterating everybody, literally. There is nobody else that comes close to what Hex has done. Boom. Oh, it's about to get funky. Funkier than you could have ever imagined. You know, Richard Hart is a boss. Hex is literally the best thing on the planet. It's simple mathematics. Right? The reality is that I want to be rich as fuck. There's only one way to be rich as fuck. That's by sitting on your ass the longest. Yep. That's it. Yep. That's the secret. The guy well told you. Richard done told you. I done told you. Kareem done told you. Maddie done told you. Everybody done told you. Everybody done told you. These motherfuckers still acting like they don't know. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
100% safe. There's plenty of games left.
Valiant done told you. Yo, everybody said it. Man, hey, you know what it is, man? Everybody done told you. Y'all's deep. Everybody. My God. Ex-Asians, bro. Everybody. Australians, man. Everybody gets me. Yo, when is it told you? Dollar told you. Everybody done told you. It's crazy. What's goody, my people? Happy Friday to all, and to all a happy Friday. I felt like doing some macro stuff today. We're at important levels, so it's probably a good idea to take a look at what's going on. As you guys see, everything is kind of in motion, so to speak. And what I mean by that is that there's a reason for people to be selling assets, right, that you wouldn't normally expect. And the reason for that is because, things are changing, right? And they're changing every day and so on and so forth. And these are things this is one of the main reasons I started doing those other streams where we're talking about strictly current events and nothing else. Because that is how you really make sense of what's going on, holistically from a qualitative perspective, right? Because risks, while they start out, risks always start out non-quantitative. They become quantitative with human understanding. And that happens by people becoming aware. This is why information is always suppressed. They can't have you knowing what's going on by default, because then it's gonna bring problems to them, in the sense that they now have to figure out how to make a new lie up to line up with the old lie, right? And the thing about it is, how do they get away with it, right? This is a question that I've been asking myself for eons, right? And this was way before I understood humans at all. Because, typically when you're not thinking outside of yourself, you can't fathom what somebody else is doing or thinking, or trying to understand why they're doing or thinking anything. You just cannot. That's why it's important to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Give me a second, people, because I'm getting a freaking call now. Hold on. Sorry about that, folks. We're back. So yeah. So all of this qualitative stuff, to the unsuspecting individual, it might seem redundant, irrelevant, etc. But it's very important. It's very, very critical that we understand the big picture at all times. I mean, you guys got to realize when Bitcoin came out and the early 2010s, that was a differentiator in understanding why you didn't have to sell Bitcoin. And we'll get into that. Shout out to everybody in the chat. See, we got 37 bodies on deck, or at least screens on deck. So shout out to you guys for tuning in. I know I'm streaming like a madman lately, so it's probably hard to keep up. I'll keep this one as short as possible. But things change every day, guys. You know, and it's important to understand which wave, or excuse me, which way the waves are falling. Not so much to stay out of the way, but so you can ride them, right? And this is what people have a hard time accepting. Like I remember when, I mean, just look at everything that's happening now uh, with Hex and Pulse Chain and all of that. People, and I get it, because people are trying to make money. But when it comes to investing or making money with money, people just typically have it backwards. And the reason for that is because of how we're taught to think. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. That's why 99% fail in trading. 99. Not 80, not 50, but damn near everybody. I mean, think about that. Is it that 1% of the population is just that good? Or is it that 1% of the population just is paying attention to what is and what isn't good? And you know, with all the time I've spent trying to ascertain what's going on in order to figure out what I need to figure out, it's it's quite something once you do figure it out. And then once you do figure it out, the next step is piecing together a way to exploit that reality, right? And I think that that's where most people, I mean, well, most people really get stuck at number two, right? Because most people don't want to figure out anything. They don't. Why should I? Why should I? Right? And this is what most people think. If I already have income and this and that and blah blah blah, why should I bother trying to understand more than I think I need to understand? Right? And this is where a lot of people get left behind, because You can have one skill and be outstanding and excel at it no matter what. But what happens when you run into something else that you've never done before? Then what? You're just going to tap out and not participate? Not even try to learn? Not try to benefit from it? I mean, this is what a lot of us do. I'm no different. This is how I realized that's what was happening. While I might sound critical of humans in general, you should understand that a lot of this analysis comes from self-analysis. Like, I cannot assess someone that I do not know unless they give me something about them to assess, right? So while I speak in general terms, I'm actually speaking about myself 99.9% of the time, because there's no other way for an individual to come to any realization if they're not cross-referencing and cross-checking. Because what is your basis when you only know one thing? You don't have any basis. All you have is that one thing. And this is hard for the average person to wrap their head around, because they think because they got it from a book, that's it. I'm good. And that's the biggest fallacy that we're all sold. Period. I remember when I didn't know math, I thought that somebody had to actually teach me the shit. I didn't know I could learn my damn self. I mean, this is how deep the brainwashing goes, people. I, a person that is profoundly devoted to self-learning, didn't think I could teach myself some shit. And the thing about it is that's the trap, because the average person believes that that's the case. They believe they have to be taught by some nondescript individual in some government approved building. And that is false. Because guess what? All the people making money off this shit here, it ain't got shit to do with school. In fact, if you apply any of those dictums to anything, you will not succeed. In fact, that is not an opinion. That is proven. Anybody that is deemed successful in our society has done it outside of the educational system. Period. I mean, even lawyers and all these professionals, they didn't become millionaires by going to school and getting a degree. They became millionaires by owning a business. Therefore, all they really had to do was read some shit on the side, start the business, and hire the doctors, and just be the owner and not do anything. Because at the end of the day, a professional that owns a practice, and this is assuming a non-professional can own it. I'm guessing, yeah, because it doesn't make any sense for them not to be able to own it. But anyways, if people just thought instead of believed a little bit more, there would be a lot more successful individuals in society. I mean, there's nothing more cringe, right? And this is from people that profess to be crypto forward. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is that these are people that pretend to be leading the charge in crypto and being educated in crypto and all of this stuff that you see on Twitter. But the reality is starkly different. These are people that are reliant on believing nonsense and not verifying facts. They must need a community, a group of people to follow so that they can feel that they're doing the right thing. This is what fake crypto does. This is what the Foxicans do. This is what their game is all about. Manipulating people into thinking that they need to survive in packs of dummies. Otherwise, the individual dummies are fucked. What else is it? You tell me. Because I mean, nowadays I hear this fucking "Everybody Done Told You" song, and I hate it because everybody was actually fucking lying. Everybody didn't tell you. Everybody was fucking lying to you, right? That's the net of the past 3 fucking years, literally. Except for me, because I'm still the only motherfucker out of all the motherfuckers you hear on that goddamn list. Very few stick to hex and stick to the fucking principles of crypto, the actual principles of crypto, not the made up principles that these motherfuckers want to pick and choose from. Because you guys gotta understand, there is no mixing, there is no fucking in between. You are either crypto or you are fucking not. And if you are, then why do you feel the need to have to guide a whole gaggle fuck of people to whatever scam you got going on today? And then why do you get mad at motherfuckers for calling you out on your bullshit? It ain't crypto. That's for fucking sure. Because if it was, you wouldn't be mad at anybody playing their solo sport their way. So you're not doing crypto, are you? No, you're not. You're just pretending to be doing it. And that's why we will continuously call you cocksuckers out. You don't matter. And you never will. Because once a liar, always a fucking liar. Especially on the fucking internet. I mean, you got to understand. These are people that are emboldened by no physical proximity. That's literally what you are dealing with 24/7 on the internet. A bunch of fucking homo thugs that think they got a clue. Nah. If they did, they wouldn't need to tell you shit. Their shit would just be the shit you would want. Period. I mean, how we pretending to be doing a solo sport, but these motherfuckers gotta manipulate a gaggle fuck of cocksuckers to come do some shit? Doesn't sound like a solo sport to me. Stuff to think about. Stuff to think about. Because again, crypto is a solo sport. But that's not what we see, is it? When you're online, you see anything but that. You see people trying to convince others. Convince, not educate, not inform, but convince, entice, right? There's an inherent difference in the two. No, nothing else. So you really got to understand when you're being played. There's so much conflicting information and narratives being thrown around that it's almost like, what the fuck? 1 minute is this, the next minute is that. I mean, remember when everybody was sucking this dude's dick? I was about the only motherfucker with any goddamn sense to be telling people, get the fuck out of here. You're stupid. Don't give a fuck what he does, what he says, what his goddamn crowd looks like. Where's that crowd at now? Because that's the fucking catch. Oh, but they got such a big crowd. Yeah, what about the motherfucking faggots that RH debated with? Where are those crowds at now? You gotta learn when you're being fucking hustled and when you're being lied to. Because guess what? Motherfuckers like whales ain't always gonna be around to call it out. And what the fuck are you gonna do then? Just lose your money and call it a day? Chop it up to experience? I mean, that's fucking stupid when you got somebody telling you right now what the fuck you need to be doing. And that's called educating yourself so that you don't fall into anybody's manipulations. It's the height of fucking comedy. We out here playing a solo sport and you got motherfuckers getting mad at other motherfuckers for doing what they want to do and what they feel like doing. When they're doing the same thing in the opposite stance of what we're supposed to be doing. How about that? So if you're juxtaposed and not adjacent, get the fuck out my face. Don't at me on Twitter like you matter, because you don't. And just stay lying to people that are going to believe you. Because you don't got a lot of motherfuckers that know. Motherfuckers already know. Otherwise, why you so worried about what we're doing if we're lame and we're whack and we're old and we're maxis, toxic maxis, and all this gay shit you people be talking about? I sure hope that all those hoops you losers are jumping through work out for you. Because unlike y'all, I listen when I speak. So if you think somebody's hating on y'all for doing whatever you want to do, then pull that dick out your ear. Because nobody actually cares. But we are going to call you out on your bullshit, though, when you're trying to entice other motherfuckers into playing themselves when they don't know any better. That's what we're going to do. All day, every day. And you don't got to like it, but you sure as fuck are going to deal with it. How about them fucking apples? Because that's literally how it works. So let's get back to this macro shit. As you guys can see here, you zoom in. We're looking at the dollar right now. You can zoom in on a 55-minute basis. And as you guys can see, this purple box right here is highlighting the rollover gap, right? And we called this rollover gap a few weeks back when the contract switched over. The price of the forward contract was a little lower than the present contract, which accounted for this gap that we see here in the chart. Let me get rid of the Donchian channels here. That gap has now been closed. So the prevailing narrative is henceforth that now that the gap is closed, the trend can continue, right? And this whole ride up, we saw market structure get taken out, right? All the way until we saw this gap. Now, if we go into the actual contract, it's going to be a slightly different picture. It's not going to be a gap. And I think this is a spike down right here. Let's see. Yep. There was no gap whatsoever. So if you were trading this chart alone and you were not aware of that other gap from the December contract, because this one is for March, and financial futures are quarterly contracts. So the previous one was December 2023. So if you weren't aware, and I don't think I can pull it up. Oh, how about that? You can't pull it up. iShares? Fuck no, this ain't right. No, that ain't right. Never mind this chart. Disregard this chart. So you can't pull up the old contract. But point is, gap has been filled and the trend should now continue. So if that is the case, bull trend continues in equities. Bull trend should continue in rates, meaning lower rates. VIX should be getting suppressed. Energy is kind of outside of this realm because that's more dependent on structural realities and geopolitical risks, because commodities are real-time instruments of value. such that if something happens in the real world that impacts a stock of supply, something that would never happen, if it happens, is going to impact the price immediately. It's not going to take weeks. It's going to be instant. But the market only reflects it as instantly as people find out about it. And this is why it's good to always have your own sources and not rely on Twitter and whatnot. Like, you really got to be doing the dirt or doing the work to get the information that you need. And the thing is, it's public info. It's just, do you know who time shit better than somebody else? And that's a skill, because that's being able to discern, right? And discernment is something we learn with time. Like, even if we pick it up on one time that it occurs, you got to see it for you to even realize it's there, right? So it's not always obvious. And that's just what it is. You got to be cognizant of how things are and how they can change from one moment to the next. Now let's go through these charts. On a relative long-term basis. This is more than 4 hours per candle. This is about 6 hours plus. 6 hours and 17. No, 6 hours. Yeah, 6 hours and 17 minutes per candle. And that's just because it's a Fibonacci value that I use. I pretty much use all my things as Fibonacci values. Anyways, so for now, we can see the trend is down, right? We got the moving averages pointing down. These are the long terms. This is 233. This is 144. And this is the 34-day. Exponential moving averages, all of them. My Ichimoku cloud is also red, right? So these are all things that are saying the trend is down. Now, this is just a chart, right? Let's draw some trend lines on here, try to get some patterns picked up. And we do have patterns here. So what's the point of doing all of this? Well, the idea is that you give yourself some lanes to drive in. Right, now let's think about this for a second. When you're outside in the street riding around, imagine if there were no roads. Right? Imagine if hold on, guys, I'm just trying to pick a color and I really hate picking these colors. I never feel like they're right, but whatever. Imagine you just riding around in the jungle, right? I mean, if you've never done that, you should know that it sucks. If you've never ridden off-road in a vehicle that's not off-road, it sucks. Like, that's why off-road vehicles exist, because that shit sucks. So you got to give yourself a road. Capiche? You can't be pretending to ride the surf when you don't know which way the waves are going. I mean, and this is what we all do, right? We like to all jump in, get our feet wet, pretend we know what we're doing, and then we lose money. Nature of the beast. But this is stuff that can be avoided, right? And this is how. This is what the point of technical analysis is. It's not to forecast. I mean, that's bullshit. You can't forecast anything. The forecasting comes from understanding what's happening on the right side of the chart. That is it. And that is relative to the past. So this is why they say trade right, but look left. Because you can't trade right if you don't know what happened. I mean, let's imagine we're looking at a 1 minute chart. 1 minute. I mean, this shit looks bullish. Oops, that's 1 month. Right, you just got a flush. Now it looks bullish. right? So you buying this, right? But let's say in your head, you're thinking this is a multi-day trade, right? In your head, you hold this bad boy for at least 2, 3 days. But yo, did you even look at the chart though? Because when you go out for 30 minutes, you see that shit makes no sense because the trend is down. This structure was broken, the bullish structure that we were seeing, right? We had all these uptrending points of support that have been obliterated right here, right? You got negative divergence, right? And this is way sloppy, right? So you have all these things going on. How can you think that this is going to be a 2-day hold? Assuming the market moves fast enough for it to not kill you, but odds are it's gonna. Now, why would I say that? Let's look at what the move is doing. Seems to be trending down right now, which is why rates are probably up. That's the interest rate VIX basically. And this is down. When the VIX is down, and this thing is down something serious. When the VIX is down, as we've talked about before, that means equities are going up. Right? And we're seeing that. No matter where you look, this is the S&P 500. This is the S&P 400 mid cap. This is NASDAQ. These are the Hang Seng indices. All right, it's China. This is Taiwan. So no matter where you look, prices are up. Right? Prices are up. And you think buying $1 off a 1 minute chart is a good trade. Right? And this is how people get washed out of the market. Because now it don't look so bullish no more. That quickly. Right? We were just looking at this. Odds are this probably has maybe one more pump left in it for you to short right here at 101 spot 8. And that's best case, assuming it doesn't just go on ahead and break 101 spot 6, 7. Because that's just how these things roll. These 1 minute charts, these small time frame charts, they're misleading because you're thinking in terms that don't make sense. And they don't make sense because guess what? In 5 minutes, that 1 minute chart is going to look different. And then in 15 minutes, that 5 minute chart is going to look different. In 2 hours, that 21 minute chart is going to look different. So it's this combination of all these things that you have to be aware of. How do you account for all these things? I mean, you can only do it by looking right. I mean, trading right and looking left. Because look, this is now materially below this previous support area and holding. So the odds of it going above are slim to none. Right? And this is the kind of thought process that you need to have once you're looking at markets. Because when you're looking at things big picture view, it's pretty easy. Right? But once you start zooming in, it gets a little hairy. Because shit be zigzagging. Right? And if you're on a 5 minute and you don't even know to consider looking at the market like this in a multi-time frame scenario, you're not making it. You just have no idea what you're doing because you're operating again on misinformation, and this time it's time based, right? So how do you save yourself from doing something you don't intend to do, which is losing money? We got a guest. What's good, brother?
What's going on, Wills?
How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. Enjoying the new year. Enjoying everything you got going on. Enjoying the stream. What's going
Appreciate
on,
it,
y'all?
brother. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for jumping in. If you got some color to add, bro, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I mean, some of the things that you had mentioned was, a lot of people say, was it look right or look right, but pay attention to the left.
Yeah, you want to trade right, but look
Trade
left.
right, but look left. There you go. I love that. So I actually think that was the first time I heard that. In all reality, I know that's probably something said more often. But I was just looking at the overall macro, exactly like you're saying, and it looks like there is still a little bit more downside that people just aren't really wanting to pay attention to, or I guess, is it because people are short-sighted? Was my question. Is it because people have such a short-term perspective, whether it be in life and anything, right? You want to get to your destination as fast as possible, even when
Right,
driving. That's why we speed, right?
right, right,
Um,
right. Yeah,
I
sad
mean,
but true.
in all reality of life, right? We literally do it
Hmm.
everywhere.
Hmm.
So I was just wondering, is that something that is it because more or less that we're becoming more short-sighted? Is
Actually, yeah, there's actually been studies on this.
okay,
Speaking strictly to financial holding times and how the market structure has changed and all of that stuff is definitely stuff that in legacy people look at.
right?
And that's kind of the thing that people don't understand in general because it's so easy to get swept up um, in the mania, right? Like remember the
Yep,
GameStop and all those points in time
yep.
where everybody is involved and everybody is aware. You know, those moments are short lived because everybody is aware. So
Mm,
it gives those that are aware of those that, it gives people that see what the crowd is doing and understand that that boat is about to get tipped over,
right.
right? Because
Well,
that's
then it comes
ultimate. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, then it comes down to like you said, just data and people, right?
Right.
The person who has the most data typically wins, hands
Correct.
down.
Right.
Um,
But
and
but
that's
the thing
kind
about that is how they use that data. It's not just the
of
data because if you look at a guy like I don't know if you're familiar with this guy named Jim Simons or
mm,
Simmons. Uh, Long story short, mathematician turned hedge fund manager, literally has the best performance professionally of all time.
mm,
And he did this using mathematical models and really is just Bayesian statistical analysis. Nothing fancy, but
right.
he combines it with Markov chains, and this is just all statistical stuff. So it's not trying to get into the weeds here, but he uses computer codes, computer algorithms, understanding that markets change over time.
Mm,
So if markets are changing over time, and this is a professional money manager that took, I don't know, I would say maybe he's probably took like $1,000 and he's probably turned it into I don't know how many billions. Like yeah, 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 it's something crazy.
I'm looking it up right now. He's
Look it up.
29.4 billion, making him the 52nd richest person in the world.
Renaissance Technologies. There's a stat on if you invested 1,000 with him, it'd be like 400 million or some crazy number like that.
My
Like
God,
$1,000, bro.
right?
1,000 to 400 million. And the thing is that as young people, we don't understand time. We
Right.
really don't, and we're not taught to. And that's the biggest drawback because in my life, that's what I've learned.
Mm,
And I learned this lesson the hard way by watching Bitcoin leave me, ETH, and all these other things I can't, like, we don't have the time to mention. Like, all these things that you just sit there and think, whatever, thinking you got forever, but you don't, right?
correct.
You got to take action. And if
Yep.
taking action for you at this point is educating yourself for the next opportunity, well, you better be doing that because these opportunities are endless.
Oh, that's facts. Fact, like
They're
literally, yeah.
yeah,
Like
they're
there,
literally endless. Yeah, I'm
you
telling you, it wasn't
we
just
s-
Bitcoin and ETH. They're just the
yeah.
relevant ones, right?
Look at it from a standpoint of real life stuff, Shark Tank. You know what I mean? Like you see shit come out with creations all the time, and you're like, why couldn't someone else think of that? Because you always think everything has already been created.
Yeah,
Not the case at all.
literally. That's funny. That's what I learned from that show.
Hmm.
What you just
That's
said
what I
right
learned.
there.
Yep.
That we all think everything is done, but it's not. You got these
Correct.
people stepping in updating shit that's been around for 100,000 years.
Yep.
Like, why not? You know what I'm saying?
Some of the
And,
shit that they come out with, you're like, wow, that's
yeah,
so easy as well. It's like you think about it and
exactly.
you're like, wow.
Exactly. Like,
Hmm.
it's a real mind bender because it's like, damn, what the fuck am I doing? Right. But the thing is that a lot of those changes come from people's experiences. Right. So you got to realize that even in that instance, it's about taking action
Hmm.
because a lot of these products that become huge, they become huge because they actually solve a problem.
Correct.
They're a solution. It's not just because somebody had the idea and somebody backed it. Like, yo, people had to buy that shit after that. You know what I mean? Like, that's not where it ends. That's just where it is. So, there's a little more to it all the time.
Facts.
And, this is kind of what I'm trying to explain with these markets and how to look at them. Like, we clearly see the trend is down. But what if you went short here at 101?
Mm.
It looks like, yeah, okay, it's down, whatever. But then look at all this short covering. You
Hmm.
missed all of that, right? Like, it's already moved 5 whole points to 6 to the downside, almost 7,
Right.
right? And it's like, if you look at this up move, well, shit, that's almost equivalent. And we're
Hmm.
now selling off. Why the hell would
Yep.
you be shorting? Right?
Mm.
And it's that simple. Like, yo, I didn't even do any TA.
Right.
I'm just talking, right?
Right.
And that talk leads to this obviousness, right? But then when we start layering tools on top of it, it's like, oh wow, look, there wasn't even any trading activity down here,
Mhm.
really. When you're looking at the distribution of price action, which is what this profile is showing us on the right side. And then what happens is you see this big hump up here, which means a lot of activity has taken place here before.
Mm.
So the
Yeah, I
price,
love the VPVR.
yeah, so the price is gonna, these areas typically act like magnets for price.
Right.
These little shelf areas. It's a good way to think of it. There's little peaks in the distribution of like a shelf. For us, that's what it looks like.
Hmm.
And the more a shelf an area it is, right, the more intense the action should be there. Like, and that's kind of what we see across the board. Like right here, there's a little shelf area you can kind of see, and price just never got back up. And then when it tried to come, they were like, nope, bye.
Hmm.
And it just flew lower, right? And then you saw it trying to breach this little, let me move that shelf area right here,
Right.
right? Like, that's what you see here, and it ain't doing it.
Let
Market.
me ask a question on
Sure.
this. So in markets, we used, especially in crypto. I mean, I know we're talking in broad base right now, but we used to see a lot of these V-shaped recoveries,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things that would go down, go up, and also the vice versa as well. It would peak real quick and then go down, right?
Right.
Did that happen pretty often in the markets? And because I know when markets come time and become more stable and more liquid and all that good stuff, right? And so I'm just curious, did that also kind of happen with the markets where it's more of a V-shaped recovery? Do V-shaped recoveries even really still happen? We saw it in the 2020, obviously, during
Mm-hmm.
that little Rona bullshit.
Yeah, this is kind of a V-shaped recovery if you think about it right here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what that's what caught my attention, and that's what kind of started to
Mm-hmm.
draw it. Because again, we used to see a quick little V-shaped recoveries, and things would just hit and then move away. And I know
Mm-hmm.
this is in the broader basis for the dollar right now, or the S&P, right?
Right. Looking at the
Um,
S&P, you kind of see that. Nasdaq kind of shows that also with the most
mhm,
recent local bottom going to end of October. I mean, so let me explain how they even happened because it took me a while to figure that out. And it's not obvious at first, but once you hear the explanation, you're like, oh, makes sense.
mhm,
Um, so because you can trade markets in both directions, right? And people can get leverage and all of that. What ends up happening is that all of that force to the downside becomes reactionary to the upside,
mhm.
right? So if the boat is tipping and people are realizing it's tipping and they don't want to fall into the water, what do you think they're going to do?
I mean, try to go the other way.
real fucking quick. And that's exactly what the V bottom is.
Right.
That's exactly what that is. And the
Nice.
thing is like everybody knows all this shit. Everybody knows all the things I'm saying. But if you don't sit down and think about what is actually going on, because it's not rocket science, it's not even hard, but you just have to think about it. Until you do that, it doesn't become as obvious as it is.
So
Because,
when
go ahead.
so when does sitting on the sidelines benefit more when waiting to take action, and taking the right moments or choosing the right moments, but paying attention the
That's a
entire
hard
time
one.
still?
Yeah,
It
that's a
is
hard
very
one.
it is very difficult, and that's one of the
Yeah,
things that,
I
we
struggle
find.
with that. I struggle with that
Right.
still. Yeah, it's hard
Mm,
because it's
mm,
like being permanently aggressive, but not.
right. Like you're
Ha-
waiting to take action, you're always in a pounce position, basically, essentially,
Correct.
ready to
Correct.
ready to deploy whatever it is, and then the time comes where I don't know. It's one of those, you either do it earlier than anticipated,
Hmm.
um, and that kind of goes out the window, or maybe you try to do it in a way of laddering in some ways somehow.
Right.
Um, and that's obviously one of the easier methods that a lot of people use. This is a double top that we've been seeing quite a bit, and I'm actually curious because typically when you do see a double top like this that you're drawing out,
Hmm.
we look to the downside pretty significantly very
Yep.
often when things happen like that,
That's right. Because what's
right?
happening is that we're seeing that supply get
Mm-hmm.
hit. Like this is exactly what's happening right here, right? And that was 5 days per candle,
Mm,
right? So that's a big candle range
correct.
per bar, right? So once we start zooming in, and this is something I realized, but now it's like a whole fucking fad, and I didn't know. I just realized it on YouTube like a little while ago that
Mm-hmm.
all this that I'm doing right here is a fad now, and that stuff you guys see me doing it for years.
Mm,
But now everybody's caught on to it. So I don't know what's gonna happen because the way about it is typically when like this is how markets typically work. Period. Like I don't really see it changing,
okay.
but you never know because humans are fucking weird. I don't know how else to explain it.
Dude, we suck, man. Like
Well,
we find a way to like screw something up, right? It's greed, right?
yeah,
There's a lot. We're
yeah,
people, no matter what, no matter
yeah.
what you're at, it's people, dude. And all the
That's right.
emotions that we're flawed with or brought with or whatever, yeah, they're everywhere, man.
That's
That's why
right.
people can be bought out, and that's why there's corrupt politicians and cops and all that shit everywhere,
Yep.
right?
Yep. But that's the thing, right? That's why I try to help people understand. Like everything starts out as information. So we all know what's going on. We all know everything that's happening on this chart. Like internally, everybody knows it flat out. And I mean every human being on earth because we all live and every day is a risk. We all got to go outside and do this and do that. We
Right.
all take risk and manage risk. We just don't realize that that's what we're doing because we don't call it that. But that's exactly
Mm,
what it is. So just like I explained to you earlier, you already understood where a V-shaped recovery comes from.
right.
You just never really thought about it. That's
Right.
really all it is. So if you sit there and do that with intention, imagine what you could figure out. Because that's how I figured this shit out because I was intent as fuck on figuring it out.
Yeah.
I had nothing else. That was it.
Well, do you
So,
not think that somehow, like, dude, as people, we see patterns fairly
hmm
quickly, right? Or
yes,
we like
by
we
default.
like to identify patterns and
Hmm.
notice them.
Hmm.
And we all have our own way of noticing whatever pattern that we see. Um, but is that something that you just, you start seeing the same thing play out over and over? Because a lot of
Yep.
it just is transposed on the next one. So like if you pull up any of the ETFs essentially at this point in time, they all look pretty similar, right? The main
Yeah.
ones, the Dow,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. They all
Nasdaq,
look
the
like
S&P,
spy.
like
They all
they-
look like spy, right? I mean, let's go through the list. I got a whole list,
yeah.
like let's go through the list. Like they all look like spy. Like, look,
Right,
I was just looking at NQ.
right,
What does it look
right.
like? Spy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
that's just the nature. I mean, some of these might not look because of the okay, so material should definitely look like it. That's what we're seeing.
Mhm.
Communications, definitely. Energy should look like crude,
Mhm.
which it does. Financials they look like they are performing everything else actually,
Mm.
which is interesting because it shouldn't. because
Wow.
things are that bad.
Yeah.
Financially speaking, economically speaking, things are that bad. But what's
Correct.
happening?
Globally too.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah, that
exactly.
shit. Yeah, that shit ain't
But what's
just
happening?
one area.
We're at 52-week highs or more.
Mm.
That's what's happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
People are just trying to, I don't know, leverage
Well,
up something. Something's going
but,
on.
well, this is the interesting thing, and I kind of try to explain it, but it's hard unless you're looking at markets trying to understand what's going on. Because other than that, I'm just saying it. It don't mean nothing.
Right.
It's in one ear and out the other. So I've talked about this before. Now, why is this something that's happening? The reason this is happening is because people got to figure out what to do to make more dollars.
Correct.
And everything we know as far as the West goes revolves around that. Looks like SPY.
Mm.
Looks like the dollar. Or I'm sorry, revolves around the dollar. This
Hmm.
technology sector also looks like SPY. Consumer staples, looking relatively weak. This is the consumer. Now,
Right.
I haven't seen anything else that looks like this, and this is bearish as fuck. This
Mm.
should stop. Okay, so we see this real live analysis right now. I never look at this chart. We see this peak in distribution right here, this
Right.
entire area. So
So we're
with
already
that in
hitting
mind, yeah,
the
with
wall,
that
right?
in
We just played the
mind,
step.
that's right. We should be hitting this wall officially. Like
Mm.
this should be it. So what you want to do is wait for a rotation upward as high and as patient as you could be, right? Because the idea is now you've identified the risk area.
Okay.
That risk area is in this box, right? You already know that looking, all the way out, price is hard pressed to get above 73.
Right.
But the idea is that you want to get that risk as close to your entry as possible. Fuck
Mm.
73. The idea is to get in fucking at 72.60
Mm.
with that risk being 72.70. No risk is what you're really trying to aim for, right? And that's of
Right.
course just 30 cents, but and I'm gonna be honest, it looks like it ain't coming back. It looks like if you're gonna get in, you gotta get in right now. That's what it looks like. I'm not gonna front. But your risk is capped at 72.70 basically, right? Because if it breaks this structure and then this one, man, the odds are very slim that
Mm.
this shit is gonna work out, right?
Gotcha.
Because you already identified what that area of danger is where price would continue if it is going to continue. And it's not easy to learn to think like this, bro. It's not easy because we see a chart doing one thing and we think it's going to continue to do that thing forever. And nah, that is not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, there was a famous quote basically saying that obviousness is the enemy of correctness,
Yep,
right? And so
100%.
it's basically like staring you in the face every single time, man. It's the obvious obvious in the obscurity, basically.
Correct. And,
Mm.
and and that's why markets are difficult because they're ambiguous, right?
Right.
You have to make sense of it. Look at this chart, right? I mean, I put these indicators on there, and now you got all this mess. Now, what I want you guys to focus on is how all these blocks are persistently trending higher, and then all of a
Mm.
sudden they stop. They no longer are trending higher. Moving averages are flatter. They're
Mm.
sloping lower, right? There's not as much of an increase in the moving averages as there once was. The 34-day, which is the shortest one on the screen, is in fact moving
Already ticking
sideways.
down, yeah.
The blue one is 144 days, and this brown one is 233. So naturally, they're going to be sloping at different angles because of different measurements, but you guys get the point. It's slowing down.
Well, and
And
this goes back to the conversation that, or maybe even a discussion that we had, but things are taking longer and playing out longer in general now, right? The time of these, like you said, the peaks going in quickly and doing like the step in elevation and then just kind of
mhm.
like stalling out. The
Yeah, so let
stalling
me
out just,
explain that.
yeah, go ahead.
Let me explain that. So it's kind of weird because V tops are rare.
Mm.
Rare in the sense that they really only happen intraday. They don't happen on a daily basis. And the only time I see them in markets on a daily basis is when some crazy event happens, like a crash, like
Right,
2020.
right.
right? Which is what you mentioned earlier.
Right.
And in fact, look at it right here. And then what you
Right.
have is 2018, which we also had a mess happen there. It's 2015 or 2018. It's 2016 and 2015
Mhm.
is here. I remember that one clear as day for whatever reason. But that is an instance in where some type of material panic happens,
Mhm.
right? And this is kind of what we saw here in the markets a while back, where there was some material panic, right? And if we pull up SPY, I'm pretty sure it's in here somewhere. There we go. Where is it? Doesn't even look like anything crazy on this chart because it's 8 days. My bad. There you go. In fact, let's get the volume on here because the volume is gonna really show what I want to highlight.
Mhm.
Let me get this freaking. All right. So if you look at the volume bars down below, you'll notice that the first thrust, high volume.
Mhm.
Second thrust, which is the final thrust, also high volume, right?
Right.
However, it's lower than the first one or than the
Right.
previous one. Now, what I want to bring your attention to is the successive increases in green candles or in green volume bars, right? Because if you realize what's going on, now I don't typically look at the market like this, but I pointed out because this is how a novice can clearly see what's going on.
Right.
Because it's not obvious unless you know what to look for, right? That's why I don't have to rely on this while I'm trading because I know I'm never going to look at that. But I
Right.
know that as I'm trying to explain it, this is what I can lean on to make it obvious. Now, as it's happening in real time, it's a different situation because you want to be zoomed in to catch that bottom. And you'll see what I mean after I show you guys this. So, what you're going to see now is a decrease, right, in the bearish volume
Mhm.
in terms of daily activity because these are accounting for both buys and sells. Don't confuse this with thinking that this is buying activity
Correct.
because that's not. This is accounting for all the trading activity of the day. The idea is to show where the bias is on the day that these volumes in the candles are either increasing or decreasing. I
Mhm.
hope that makes sense. So if we're looking at the red volume days, we'll notice that they're decreasing in power,
Right.
right? And then at the low, that's the lowest one out of all of these 4 days, which
Right.
were major volume days. And that's the reason we're highlighting them. Like you can put a average on there if you want, a moving average on there if you want, but it's obvious that the average is probably like 400 million.
Mm.
So if we're trading at, oh, wait, I'm sorry, I don't have a count. Excuse me. Give me a second. 120. I was looking at the damn chart like if that was the millions. My bad. Let's see here. This is the one. Yeah, it looks like it's a 80 million average. So if
Mm.
we got a day where it's 50% above that, probably want to pay attention to what's going on.
Right.
Right. And it's the same thing all the way down to where we come close to 100 million. So we went from being up 50% in volume on a down day to being just up maybe 15%, 25,
Mm.
right? Significantly less from 50%. I mean, that's crazy. And then at the same vein, you got the volume increasing now that we're having up days, right?
Right.
Like this volume is obvious, right? And this is what people talk about when they say pay attention to the volume because it does give you signals, right? But if you don't include that in your repertoire, I mean, you're not gonna do it. Like I don't feel I need
Right.
to because I can figure it out when I'm in the
Without looking at it. Yeah.
yeah
Right.
without looking at
That's
it
kinda
because
how I do it. That's how I look at it as well.
yeah because when you're in there that shit gets in the way, bro. Like it's not really
Yeah.
helpful. Like I
Right.
don't feel like it's helpful. I feel like that shit distracts me, so I just get rid of it.
Right.
I don't want to look at it on an intraday basis. But anyways, the idea is that you identify these structures, right? And you got to identify them really on a zoom in basis, right? Like you start outward and then you zoom in, but you really got to be aware of what is actually happening on these charts. Because look at how we identified that double top easily
Right.
on that 5 or 8 day. Like we didn't have to struggle because it wasn't visible on the daily at all.
Mm.
Right. And if you would have wanted to see it, we would have had to scrunch the chart up and it would have just not been cute. Right.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, exactly. You
that's
stop
just
paying attention at a certain point. You stop looking
yeah.
back. 'Cause whatever reason
Yeah.
your mind thinks that's far back, right? And then it's
Yep.
a weird way, or at least my mind does. Which is why using like weekly and longer time frames is always easier as well, from my opinion, just because it kind of crunches everything down. So I just, in whatever reason, I just think it's more recent, which is
Mhm.
odd to think about it that way,
Yeah,
but
it is.
you know,
I mean,
I mean, dude,
it's even dangerous, really,
right, right, right.
right?
But you look back,
Because
yeah, exactly. It's why I can't be
yeah,
doing like 5 minute anymore, bro. Because I look at a 5 minute chart and I'm like, this is only one day.
right. But
Just that shit messes me up, bro. Don't mess
but,
with
but
that.
but like, look at it, right? This is
Right,
technology today. I
right,
mean, the market's been open for what, 2 hours maybe,
right. Yep.
highlighted right here in gray. Like this is how long the market's been open, and this is a
Hmm.
stock. You know, God bless you if you trade stocks for a living, because you gotta really dig.
Right.
You gotta dig. You
For
gotta
the
have your
freaking 2% gains each day, just trying to capture
It's a
anything you
whole
can.
thing, bro.
Yep.
Like that's why I fuck with futures. It ain't all that serious. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? You get in and you get out and call it a day. Fuck. Unless you want to just, position trade, which is a
Yep.
whole nother ball game. But man, look, I believe that now this is just my opinion. I think everybody should be financially literate to the point that they don't have to rely on somebody to guide them through decision making, right? And
Correct.
what I mean by that is, the information we're talking about right now is just educational stuff. How to
Yep.
look at a market, how to identify this, how to, look at that, how to maybe think about something. But it's not why you want to buy or sell. Like
Correct.
that's something
Correct.
you gotta determine. Because it has to be in line with your risk tolerance. It has to be in line with how you look at the market. Number
Yep.
one, and that's the most difficult thing for most people, because they don't understand what that means,
Right.
because they're
Yeah, they don't
busy.
have their why.
Well, that's a big part of it because they're not determined to figure it out, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
that why drives that action. So I get
Mhm.
what you mean, but I'm really speaking from a superficial level in the sense that we're acting like, let's say this is a person that's actively engaging in markets, right? And they are not being, how do I say this, intentional with their actions, meaning they're just doing whatever. They don't even really
Mhm.
have a strategy. They're just kind of doing like whatever flows, whatever happens that day, literally,
Yep. Yep.
right? Like that person is only operating on bought time. It's only a matter of time before they run out of luck, basically,
Correct.
right? So how do you combat that as an individual that doesn't know anything from the start? I mean, that
Mhm.
comes from education and understanding.
Yeah, and lessons of being burned and all of it, man.
Yeah, because I
Like, hey,
mean,
we've all had, I guarantee, like, you say you're lost and you have your memories as well, the big ones. I have my memories that just like hit hard. I'm never gonna forget, I feel like, at that point. And you're like, all right, well, shit happens back then, and obviously we're here now. Thankful to be here. But yeah, those are definitely tough times to get through sometimes. And especially for some people, they get lucky very quickly. And
right?
especially in crypto. Right,
Oh
it
yeah,
happens even faster because you can just
yeah,
invest $1,000 somewhere and get like 10,000 out of nowhere, and you're like, "Holy what?" And then you think, "I'm great at this," and,
yeah.
and then you lose the 10,000 all of a sudden, right? And so,
Yep.
we've all heard the horror stories and all that before. Wells, I got to step off. Thank you so much for having me on, my
No doubt,
brother. Thank
brother.
you so much, everyone. Like the channel. Be sure to click that like and subscribe for Wales. And yeah, catch you on the next one, man.
Appreciate you coming through, brother.
Peace.
Always a pleasure. Peace. So, guys, let's wrap up this dollar conversation. Let's see how this 1 minute trader is doing. Let's see if they would have maybe stuck in. Oh, they got lucky. They're getting the uptrend in structure on a 1 minute basis. So if the trend continues and it doesn't tap out literally right here at 101 spot 920, then they can see the other side of the river and maybe even traverse, right? But that's a tall order. And people got to be not interested in keeping that price down, right? And if you look at the buying volume, uh, that joint decreasing, people. Let's lower this because it's actually on. God damn it. All right. The buying volume is decreasing. So you would really want to see something spike that bad boy higher if it's really going to go higher. And I mean, 12 contracts seems like the cutoff. So I don't know what to tell you guys. But I just don't trust it long, especially after this move lower. We're going to have a retracement move indeed. And it'll probably come back to the apex of this wedge, which will probably be somewhere up here. I mean, it could cap out at these moving averages, but typically the market forces a respecting high volume in either direction. So if it was the upside, I'd be saying the same thing. Uh, but basically, as you guys see these little red blocks, they auto generate based on price action. And these are typically retracement areas and just areas to be cautious of because there shouldn't be a trend in them, basically. And this is what we're seeing so far here. But as you guys know, right, the whole idea is that this is what's driving everything else, right? So if this is driving everything else, we need to be aware of what's happening here, right? And if we pay attention to volume, again, since it became a thing today, the down volume is increasing, right? Um, and if you look at the recent price action, big days are pretty significant in the sense that they continue the trend. So we'll just keep an eye on this market. Probably do another stream next couple days. Keep up with this, but ultimately, we're seeing that the downside in the dollar is bringing in the upside in a lot of other markets, right? And of course, markets have to recalibrate themselves, restructure, flow, shake people out, etc. We hit another area of interest, and the market is reacting. Right, so we just gotta wait and see what the market is ultimately going to decide. Is it going to move to down here and recover, or is it just going to recover here, or is it just going to lose itself entirely? I mean, it could literally trade to here, like this, and that's the thing that's difficult. You kind of got to just have an idea of what you want to see and be comfortable playing it and taking the risk and understanding what could happen, even if you're right and wrong at the same time. Because let's say the market does give you the best option, which is it coming all the way down here and you get that buy. I mean, the odds of price recovering or coming back down there are slim to none, right? Especially if the dollar is really going to retreat permanently in the short term, right? And that's kind of the logic you kind of need to have, right? Understanding what the flows could do based on A, B, C, X, Y, Z, because that could change, right? Like we're looking at bonds now, they're retreating just like equities are. See? So these flows are congruent for a reason. They're collective, cohesive, happening in the same vein. We look at these currencies, they're following the same path, right? And again, the idea is for you guys to understand that all these markets are connected. The world is just a big flow chart of for capital. That's it. So here's gold. What is gold doing? Doing the same thing everything else is doing. Right. So it just trades differently. Crude, of course, all in its own world. In another area of interest that I identified on a bigger time frame. That's why it's red. Um, See if it shows up. There you go. There. I could probably send these a little bit better, but that's how I felt they were. They made sense at the time. Yeah. Let's see what Nat Gas is doing. I think it might still be flying. Nope. Finally finding a reason to pull back. So Nat Gas really moves off of weather and weather forecasts for anybody that cares. Ran into an area of interest, of course, and reversed. The question is it going to stay here or is it going to get picked up by this little number right here, right? As you guys can see in the profile, we have a little shelf area, price traded into it, and it seems to be retracing. But again, the question is, will it actually recover permanently or is this just a new downtrend? So far, it looks like a new downtrend. And I'll show you guys why I think that. Hold on, guys. Alrighty. So I'm just laying out some new areas of interest on the chart. And basically, you kind of want to see price get ahead of these, right? If it is going to recover. And so far, so good. Let's just get another one on here on the buy side. Now, how do I make these lines? Well, the way I make them, I'm pretty sure everybody has their own way, is I like to see something to the left of what I'm about to draw to the right. And then there should typically be, unless it's a fresh area like this one, there should typically be something in the profile. And this one is pretty badly drawn because of the number of ticks. I need to decrease these. That's better. And I use the profile on the side basically as an assist to help me ID the areas correctly. But there has to be an area of previous support or resistance to the left with some identifiable information in terms of distribution to the right. And that's the way I like to do it. But everybody does their own thing. I don't know. I don't think there's a standard. That's just the way I've always done it. So I don't know. That's just how I do it. And again, you want to see price just traverse these interim structures, right? If it is going to continue on the nat gas side. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. It's just about understanding what the dollar's doing because that pretty much drives everything else. I don't really think anybody really cares about commodities like that, but you should know that overall, in general, cost of food is down. But that's not what you see when you go to the store, right? And that's a function of the monetary problem. A lot of people don't understand it, but that's the actual problem behind everything. The economy, the stock market being at all-time highs, everything. It's all based on that. Because how are we at 52-week lows in food? And let me go to a daily chart, just in case anybody's confused. Not in coffee, but we're definitely way off the highs, which is great. Hogs not really taking off yet. I thought they were going to take off sooner, but the disinflation came, right? But we don't see it at all in the stores. We're way off all these highs. However, prices keep trending higher. Why? Because they keep printing money. So equities moving up will eventually become obviously negative for you, the average person who does not own equities. Because all that's going to mean is that your cost of living is going to go up in line with that. That's what's happened. That's what happens when you financialize everything about an economy. I don't really talk about this, but I like to watch these spreads. This typically means that so this is the difference between the front month contract and the second month. Once we cross over the zero line, that typically means it's a good time to buy. As you can see here, bounce off 20 cent with a spike down to zero. Because again, it's just a price differential between the first and second month. It's not anything else. I watched the front month spreads between all these commodities just because this is something you should do. For example, you look at the sugar spread and it's 35 cent positive, right? But that's not what you see on the chart. So if the market is down 7 total points from its high, then odds are this is a little offsides, right? Because that was a pretty drastic move lower in a short amount of time. Coffee, same deal. It was a short amount of time, so you see kind of the same move, right? Positive spread means the front month costs more than the following month. So if you look at the gold spread, you see it's trading negative 20. That means that the current month trading at 2057 is 20 points behind the second month. That should be trading at 2077. Let's find out. Whoops. Bam, 2077. So that's how that works. So that's a way to gauge whether the market is offsides or not. If so, you look for a reason to take advantage of the opportunity. And if we are in a bull market in precious metals, you should understand why this chart is negative as hell during the entire time that is the case. Because this is the stuff I be talking about that's a little out there. This entire time, gold is higher. I mean, we're talking about 2 years. Let's go back. Let's go back to 2018. 1469, 2271. That's the range. Now, the idea is that if we are in a bull market, which the chart shows us we are, the spread should not be negative. Right? And it's been negative. And it's been trending down, not just negative, because it wasn't negative until this point, which was after May 2020, after the Rona crash, after it recovered. Just want to highlight that. It only went negative after that point in time. So what you should understand is that this is a frontal assault on gold. That's what this literally is. Guarantee you, if we look at silver, it's going to be the same deal. Actually, it's just been negative for much longer. So if we zoom out, right? This is 2016. Gold was positive at this point in time. And if you follow silver, you know that the banks been caught and fined already for manipulating this metal. I'm pretty sure they got caught in gold too, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. But either way, this is how you know that there is manipulation afoot. I mean, they don't hide it. You just got to know how to look for it and how to identify it. Because we're in a bull market. Everything is saying it. But yet, not the actual market itself. Because it's trading at a negative spread. Things to understand about this cruel world we live in. So let's take one last look at the dollar and then we'll wrap it up. Appreciate you guys tuning in today. Hope the conversation was good. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Yeah, the guys paused that. That's it. Game over. He didn't make it. Didn't make it to the other side. Uh-oh. If he loses this, it's a wrap. If he loses 180, it's all in. All in on everything else going up. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one. Peace. Right? The reality is that I want to be rich as fuck. There's only one way to be rich as fuck. That's by sitting on your ass the longest.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's the secret. The guy well told you. Richard done told you. I done told you. Kareem done told you. Maddie done told you. Everybody done told you. Everybody done told you. Shit, motherfuckers still acting like they don't know. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Trust
that.
us. 100% safe. There's plenty of games left.
Valiant done told you. Yo, everybody said it. I mean, hey, you know what it is, man? Everybody done told you. Yash D, everybody. My God. Ex-Asians, bro. Everybody. Australians, man. Everybody gets me.